Hey guys, Heidi Preeb here. So on my channel, we talk about all things attachment style, personality types, and any other systems or theories that help us understand ourselves and other people better. So this week, we're talking about the early experiences of the different attachment styles that led them to developing the worldview that they now hold as adults. So our attachment styles are more or less formed before the age of 2 or 3. And the reason that they form this young is because as children, we are developing a worldview and our brain is wiring itself around that worldview that to an extent follows us through our lives. So our attachment systems do grow and mature with us, and they might take on different expressions or different forms as we go through life based on what works for us as we grow up. But for the most part, unless we consciously intervene with our attachment systems, the styles that we form when we're very young tend to correspond to the styles that we have as adults. So today we're going to be talking about the early experiences of the securely attached person. Now, I think that secure attachment is the most misunderstood attachment style because people have this view of it in their minds as kind of this perfect ideal. And often I also see people kind of freaking out because they're like, you have to be the perfect parent in order to give your child a secure style. Actually, that's not true at all. Interestingly, that kind of idea that you have to be perfect and do everything the right way and follow every rule perfectly is generally more of an avoidant attachment style response than a secure one. Part of secure attachment means being self-aware about when we need help, about what things we can't do well, and being able to cover our own blind spots and also acknowledge when we've done something wrong and model for our children the ability to not get everything right in life, but to still manage our relationships in the face of that. So secure parenting is less about doing every little thing right, and it's more about being emotionally in tune with your child and being able to repair the relationship with them if a rupture happens. So secure parents are ironically the ones who you will probably most often find saying things to their children like, "I'm sorry, I didn't handle that properly. Let's talk about our feelings around it together." It's not about doing everything right, it's about being attuned to your child's emotional response and working together with your child the way you would work with any relationship in order to find a middle ground where you're both happy and respectful of each other. There's a very deep humility to secure attachment because when you have a secure attachment style as an adult, you don't necessarily have a large amount of shame-bound emotions. So what that means is if you mess up, you know how to recognize your mess ups and apologize and make amends for them. And so you end up modeling that skill to your child. And as a result, your child tends to feel comfortable coming to you when they've made a mistake or done something wrong and they need someone to help them figure out a better way forward. So all of that is a little bit of a caveat. What I want to talk about specifically is what the early experiences of secure attachment felt like for adults who now have secure attachment as their style. Now, in this video, we are specifically talking about adults who have always had a secure style. So many adults go through a long therapeutic process or through a long journey of self-work where they earn or develop a secure attachment style, often with the help of a therapist who can model healthy relationship skills with them. But this video focuses on people who have always had a secure attachment style and who developed it from a very young age. And it's very important to understand what went right in these situations that allowed the child to start developing in a way that was both very resilient and very flexible, which are two of the traits that characterize securely attached children. So the type of parenting that develops a securely attached infant is called sensitive parenting. So generally what happens when you have a securely attached child is that the parent has a very clear sense of differentiation between the self and the child, which means they are not threatened in any way by their child's emotional range. And this is quite different than the experience of, let's say, a parent with an anxious attachment style or a parent with an avoidant attachment style. So with insecurely attached parents, you often get either an over or an under identification with the child. They might either feel like the child's moods, particularly the child's negative emotions like anger, like an inability to be soothed, are a direct reflection of who they are as a person. And so they have to reject the child if the child becomes too distressed in some way in order to prove, I'm not a bad parent, it's just that the child is a bad child. Right? There's an over-identification with the child, and they might believe the way that the child is acting is a reflection of who I am as a parent. Or it might be the opposite. They might feel like, as long as I feed my child, as long as I make sure they have a roof over their head and food in their belly, that is where my responsibilities kind of end. So if the child's still upset after that point, I'll just let them cry it out because I know that there's nothing actually wrong. So I'm just gonna let this child learn to take care of their own emotions. They don't see things like warmth and engagement and sensitivity as a need for the child, which it absolutely is. Those things are crucial to the child's development. But again, in the case of insecure attachment, the parent is often looking at the child as a reflection of who they are. So if they think, I have to suck up all my emotions or else I get picked on, they're going to try to instill that same mindset in their child. But with the sensitive, secure parent, what you get is the ability to handle and contain their child's full range of emotions. So when the child is angry, the parent does not take it personally, and they can sit with that child's anger and actually help their child kind of learn the lay of that landscape, help the child understand why they're angry, help them understand what a better solution might be. But that doesn't mean dismissing their anger. It means really being present with that emotion and then helping them figure out what it means, and doing the same thing for sadness, for happiness, for distress, for fear, right? All of these emotions that come up for children when they're young, the child does not naturally have a blueprint for dealing with. So when they're angry, they don't know what they're supposed to do. They go to their caregiver and express the feeling, and they learn through their caregiver's response what they're supposed to do with that emotion. When they're sad, the child's first instinct is to go to their parent, see how their parent responds to their emotion, and then learn their reaction around it. And a parent who can do this well and who can be present and mirror their child's emotions back to them without becoming overwhelmed themselves by their child's experience. This is what we call containment. The parent is able to kind of take in the child's emotion, show the child that they understand and that they see what they're dealing with, mirror it back to them in some way, and then help the child find a healthy set of coping skills for dealing with that emotion. Containment is the act of holding our children's experiences inside of our own minds in a way that they are not yet able to, and processing them through an adult lens so that we can teach our children the appropriate responses. Kids don't have the skills yet, and sometimes as adults, we don't have the skills yet either. So we have to be very aware before we have children or once we have them, if an emotion that our child expresses feels very threatening to us or we feel disgusted by it. The best thing we can do for that child is figure out why we are blocked from experiencing that emotion in its pure form and work with someone else, like a therapist, who can contain that emotion for us and help us move through it in a healthier way so that we can eventually model that skill for our children. And eventually, the parent's ability to respond to their child's emotions appropriately and mediate the response that the child is having without getting overwhelmed themselves by that child's response helps the child learn to process that emotion in a developmentally appropriate way. So to serve as a safe container for our children's emotions, we have to first learn to mirror those emotions back to them and then show them the response that's going to be more adaptive. So, for example, I like to think of this as, let's say you land on an alien planet, okay? You've been placed on a spaceship overnight, you wake up in the morning in an alien planet, and you are given one alien who you have contact with, who is to serve as your guide and protector on this alien planet, okay? If you get an alien who speaks fluent English, if that is your native language, you're going to feel very soothed because that alien is going to understand you when you tell them what you're thinking and what you need, and they're going to be able to help you find that. But if you get an alien who speaks your language but only in very broken and fragmented pieces, you might start to panic because now your means of communicating with this person who is providing you with everything that you need to stay alive is going to be very difficult. And this is what it's like for a child when they have a parent who is very emotionally literate and who is able to respond to them in an emotionally attuned way, versus a parent who only has limited access to emotions. Because when you're an infant, emotion is your only way of communicating to this being who is there to protect you and give you what you need on this strange planet that you've arrived in, right? So if you have a sensitive, attuned parent who understands what emotions you're feeling and can mirror them back to you, you feel like this parent speaks my language, they're able to decipher my needs. Sometimes it might take a little bit of extra emotion to get them to properly understand, but for the most part, when I express what my needs are using emotions, they understand and respond appropriately. That is very calming. Versus if you are assigned a parent and they only get what you mean when you express your emotions about 10% of the time, and the other 90% of the time when you express your emotions, they translate it incorrectly inside their own brains and maybe get upset or mad at you, that is going to be a very threatening experience for you as a child. And that is the experience of children who have insecurely attached parents and do not have their full emotional range available to them. So if you're on your alien planet and you send your alien a text message and you say, "I am hungry," and the alien responds to you and says, "Oh, you're hungry. Here's where you go get lunch." That is a very soothing response. And eventually you don't need to text your alien anymore. You can just go to the lunch buffet because your alien has taught you the tools for getting your need met on your own. But if you text your alien, "I'm hungry," and they don't actually know what that means, so they send you a text back that says, "Go to the shoe store," you're going to be very confused when you end up at the shoe store and you don't understand where the lunch buffet is. So you might learn one of two strategies. You might learn to either send your alien 10 more text messages trying to communicate your need in different ways, because you know that eventually once they get it, they will respond to you and tell you where the lunch buffet is. Or you might learn to just go out onto the alien planet on your own and search for the lunch buffet yourself, because you've learned that your alien isn't really able to help you because they don't understand you enough to give you proper direction. So this is exactly what happens with anxious and avoidant individuals respectively. The anxious individual learns if they just try hard enough, eventually their parent will get it and they will provide them with guidance. But they have to try so hard that they often spend so much time thinking about how to communicate with their parent that their entire worldview becomes kind of preoccupied with learning to communicate their needs. And in the case of the avoidantly attached person, they learn that no matter how hard they communicate, something about their parent is just incapable of processing their full emotional range. So they're going to learn to stop trying to communicate at all and to just go out and try to solve the problem as much as possible on their own. But as you can see, the best possible outcome here is the secure outcome, where you are for the most part just understood, have the resources you need provided to you, and then as you go through life, you learn to do all of these things that you can eventually do confidently and competently on your own. And you also learn, if your alien is consistently providing you with accurate information, that for the most part you can trust other people to provide you with accurate information as well. You kind of assume if I go up to another alien and I ask them where the dinner buffet is, they're probably going to tell me where it is because that was your experience with your first alien. And this is also how it is for securely attached children. They learned, when I show my emotions, I'm responded to sensitively and I'm given accurate information in response. So now I expect that when I go out into the world and share my emotions with other people, they will also give me accurate information in response. And this doesn't always happen, of course, because you might be interacting now with insecure other people, but because you have that initial blueprint of when I go to someone and show my emotion and they show that they're responsive to it, that's probably a good indication that the information they're giving me in response is accurate. So secure children, as they grow up well into adulthood, tend to be pretty good at figuring out what the green flags are that show someone else is going to give them accurate information. Generally, when they're interacting with another secure person, they can tell because their emotions do not scare that person off. They can show how they're feeling, they can talk about what they're feeling and thinking, and for the most part, the other person doesn't get dysregulated by that. And so they can kind of trust that their responses are going to be rational and well thought out and thoughtful, the same way their parents were as a child. And this learning applies also to how you approach other people who are in distress. So if when you were a child, your parents rocked you and held you and soothed you when you were distressed, now, when other people are distressed as an adult, you don't feel threatened by their distress. Your instinct might be to hold them, to be kind to them, to offer comfort or support. Because the early worldview of the securely attached child is when discomfort is present, support is needed. And so they feel comfortable also stepping into that position and offering care and love and support for other people. So because their parent responded to them in very flexible and adaptable ways, securely attached children learn to respond to other people in flexible ways. So they don't try to use the same approach on every single person they meet. They learned at a very young age, based on what emotion I'm expressing or what I'm putting forth in my relationship with my parent, they respond differently to me based on what I need in that moment. So they're also able to offer a wide range of responses to the people that they meet in life. So if they meet a more avoidant person, they're able to recognize this is a person who needs some space and who doesn't want me to come too close, and I can respect that and give them a bit of distance. Or if they meet a more anxious person, they can go, okay, if I want to be close to this person, I have to give them a little bit more reassurance and comfort and nurturance, or I have to set some boundaries if not. So there's this natural flexibility with the secure response. that is not present for the other types who have only kind of learned one response system, right? So the avoidant has kind of learned to stop asking the other aliens for help. And the anxiously attached person has learned to focus all of their energy on trying to communicate their needs at the expense of the exploration that maybe they would otherwise be doing. But the securely attached person has learned when it's appropriate to communicate their feelings, often in situations where they're not really sure how to proceed, and when it's appropriate to rely on the blueprint that they've internalized about this kind of alien planet and just go solve their problems for themselves. And this is why we see the most resiliency coming out of securely attached children, because they have that very adaptable approach to life based on the responsiveness of their early caregivers. So again, this does not mean that the caregiver was perfect in the case of the securely attached child, right? All this means is that the caregiver did their best to respond to the child, and they were humble about what they didn't know. If you have an alien who doesn't know where the lunch buffet is, but they do know that they can call their friend and ask, and then relay the information to you, you're in a much better situation than an alien who takes it really personally when you ask them a question they don't know the answer to and gives you a false answer just to get you off their back. You're also in a much better position if your alien accidentally gives you the wrong directions, and then they can come back to you when you end up at the shoe store and say, hey, I gave you the wrong directions. Let's go together to the lunch buffet now that I understand what I did wrong. Then if you have an alien who gives you the wrong directions and then insists that they gave you the right directions and that you just don't have a good sense of navigation, right? The secure parent understands when they do something wrong, and to the best of their ability, they're able to correct that mistake and help their child understand what happened so that their view of the world and their view of their own inner sense of direction does not get disrupted. So the early experiences of the securely attached adult were often that they had parents who could be flexible in response to their child's emotional demands, understand what their child was communicating to them, not feel threatened by their child's needs, and to the best of their ability, give their child what they needed and provide them with the directions that they needed in order to do that thing for themselves. And as a result, the child grows up learning both, I can reach out to other people and ask for support and help when I'm struggling and don't know what to do. And also, I can be autonomous and figure things out on my own based on the accurate information that I've been given thus far about how the world works. And I can also give back to other people what my caregivers gave to me, which was support, empathy, and the benefit of the doubt when I was struggling. And so I'm able to offer to others the same type of support and guidance that in my early years was offered and modeled to me. So they can serve as a pretty good alien guide to the next human who arrives on that planet, right? All right, this is one of my metaphors that I particularly liked, so I hope that that translated to you guys. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments of this video. I love you, I hope you're taking care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you back again here really soon.